I'm going to make it back tenfold. And there's always been this little voice inside of me that has just told me that. And I've believed it, and I've been okay. And I've never worried about losing the $100,000. I know at some point in my life, I'm going to earn it back, doing something that I love, helping a bunch of people. I've always felt that. So I've always been okay with losing it. Even to this day, there's zero regrets. Even when bills get tough, even when I don't have the money for stuff, and even when other people are like, dude, don't you regret like spending that money? You could do this. And people tell me all these different things that they would have done with it. And I'm like, I'm okay. I'm really okay. In fact, I know I'm going to get it back. And I know I'm going to get it back times 10. I've always felt like you can rebuild money. What I'm focusing on now is rebuilding the peace in my heart and just trying to heal from my dad and making sure I do grieve. I blew $100,000 that my dad left me, and I don't regret it. There's not 1 ounce of me that regrets doing it. When I was 16 years old, I had a wonderful, wonderful father. He was my hero. I tell people all the time, if I could be just half of the man that my dad was, I'd be the best father in the world. I loved my dad. Colon cancer got him. Sadly, he was in Vietnam, got sprayed on by Agent Orange. Years later, caught up to him. I saw the strongest, healthiest, most optimistic man just melt away in front of my eyes when I was in high school. I was a sophomore, junior in high school. When he passed, I found out that he left me about $100,000. And that was crazy to me. Like $100,000, I'm 17, 18 years old, and I blew it in about 4 to 5 months. That's all it took me. It didn't take me very long to blow all that money. And I blew it fast. And I blew it on cars. Literally cars. Used cars. I was obsessed with buying cars. I was obsessed with looking a certain way in other people's eyes in high school. And for me, it was cars. Part of me, I feel like looking back, if I'm reflecting, my mom was always into cars. So when I had this money, I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy cars. Another big part of it was growing up with my father. We grew up in Toyota Tundras, and we had like every model of the Tundra. And he would tell me all the time, he said, Hart, you keep getting good grades. I had like straight A's at the time. When my dad passed in high school, I almost failed high school, but it's another story. You keep getting good grades. This truck will be yours one day. You keep surrounding yourself with good people, good friend circle. This truck will be yours one day, right? You just keep being a good ass kid. This truck is going to be yours when you turn 16. And when he passed, the truck was still in the driveway. And a few weeks later, after he passed, I walked home from school and the truck wasn't there. And I called my mom, I called my friends, and no one knew where the truck was. Apparently, it got repoed because when, the owner of the truck dies, which was my dad, and he's no longer making payments because he passed away, the truck goes away. And that broke my heart. So I think that's another reason why I spent $100,000 in 4 to 5 months on cars. What I would do is I'd go into these dealerships, tell them I can like wire them as much as they need for these cars. And I'd just find a car. I'd buy it for, let's say, 40 grand, 50 grand that day, drive it home. And on that way home, I want to mention that I didn't feel good at all. I remember like the search and the looking for the cars and going online and going to the dealerships and the process of buying it were giving me all these like crazy feelings of like dopamine. And then once I sat in the car and I actually drove these cars off the lot, it didn't do anything for me. I didn't feel anything. In fact, I felt like I felt more depressed. It definitely seems like I was trying to fill some sort of hole or gap inside of me regarding my father. And so that pattern continued. I'd buy a $40,000, $50,000 car. I'd drive it for a few weeks, literally show up to school, drive my friends around, feel cool as a young 17, 18-year-old. I'm 31 now. And then that feeling would go away of the new car. And so I would turn it in, lose a bunch of money on the car, and buy another car. And I would just repeat this cycle for about, 4, 5, 6, 7 different cars before I knew it. There's a few $100s in my bank account. Safe to say, my mom was heartbroken. My poor mom. The shit I've put my mom through, you have no idea. But yeah, that money was, my dad worked most of his life to save up that money for my college, for maybe a down payment on a house, however you're supposed to use that money. And I blew it in 3 or 4 months, and I didn't even really graduate high school yet. It was gone. But I think I did spend that money because, those cars were trying to fill those memories of my dad that I lost, and I was grieving. And I wasn't grieving maybe the healthiest way. I remember when he passed, I would just, whenever I'd get sad, I would just go upstairs, run into the bathroom. Whenever I'd feel these feelings of grief, and I'd just squeeze my face and my eyes as hard as I could and just hold everything in. And I did that for years. I wouldn't let anything out. And I'd just squeeze it in. I'd hold it in. And then I'd make all these irrational decisions with money. It was weird. I lost my father. I lost the vehicle that we did everything in. We camped a lot, went hiking a lot, he was an outdoorsman, and that's all I did. And that truck was definitely a part of us. It wasn't about how the truck looked. It wasn't like that. It was just like the smell of the truck, the feel of the truck, like my dad, me in that truck. It was everything. My father's dad died when he was very young. He didn't have a father in his life, and his mother was very controlling. So when he had me, he wanted to make sure that, I was just having the best life, and we spent the most time together, and he wanted to be the best dad possible. So we did a lot of things in that truck. I remember literally almost every night, school nights, we would go night fishing, and it was like the coolest thing ever, sitting under the moonlight with my dad fishing, hopping into the truck. The truck meant a lot to me. Yeah, buying those cars was about filling the hole, and the hole, let's just say the hole never got filled by buying all those cars. I lost something massive, I lost my dad. I lost my hero. Loved him more than anything. Now it's crazy. I feel like I barely even knew him. I only got 16 years. It's almost, I've been alive longer without him than I've been with him. And blowing that money, I think I was just trying to regain control somewhere. How can I regain control somewhere in my life because the best thing in my life just got stripped away from me, and I felt like I had no control. Has anyone watching this video, I'm curious, have you ever spent money to fill something emotional? I feel like I'm pretty far up there on the leaderboards of how much money I spent trying to fill that emotional gap in me, that emotional hole. But how do I feel now? I'm 31 years old. I'm going through life. I'm not the richest man in the world. I feel like I have a very basic income in terms of, majority of the population. And yeah, I think looking back, if I had 100K right now, would it be nice? Of course. Could I do a lot of things with that? I'm sure I could. Would I be smarter with it now? Yeah. But I don't hate myself for it. I've never hated myself for it. And when I tell people the story and I say like, oh, I'm like, it's just what I did. It's just who I was at the time, and I don't regret it. Like I don't feel any hate towards myself for doing that. I'm sure my dad would be pissed up there in heaven looking down at me, but like in a way, I don't think he would either. This was kind of meant to happen, and I don't hate myself for it. I was young. I was only 17, 18. I was grieving. I was lost. I'd recently moved out of my mom's house. I had no emotional guidance. I was a wreck. I was an absolute wreck. I was experiencing with PEDs, performance enhancing drugs. I was into bodybuilding. Like I was a little lunatic when I was 17, 18 years old. But the biggest feeling I've always had, and I think why I've always been okay with losing that $100,000 that my dad left me, is I've always had this internal feeling that I'm going to get it back. At some point in my life, I'm going to make it back tenfold. And there's always been this little voice inside of me that has just told me that. And I've believed it, and I've been okay. And I've never worried about losing the $100,000. I know at some point in my life, I'm going to earn it back. Doing something that I love, helping a bunch of people. I've always felt that. So I've always been okay with losing it. Even to this day, there's zero regrets. Even when bills get tough, even when I don't have the money for stuff, and even when other people are like, dude, don't you regret like spending that money? You could do this. And people tell me all these different things that they would have done with it. And I'm like, I'm okay. I'm really okay. In fact, I know I'm going to get it back, and I know I'm going to get it back times 10. I've always felt like you can rebuild money. What I'm focusing on now is rebuilding the peace in my heart, and just trying to heal from my dad and making sure I do grieve. I think too many people let one season of immaturity completely define their entire identity. And for some people, like my entire identity still to this day is the kid who blew $100,000 in a few months on cars. But I've never been worried about that. I know I was dumb and young and stupid, and and I was just hurting. I think I was just hurting, and I didn't realize that at the time. But that's my story. That's how you blow $100,000 at 17, 18 years old. Easy as that. I love you guys. Don't be too hard on yourself. Everyone makes mistakes. Let's learn. Let's grow from it. Let's move on. That's all I got for you. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next video.